Hi everybody. Ex-husband suddenly appeared. Will CEO James and Deep have to break up? Late afternoon when James just got home from work, he saw Deep sitting in the garden, face a little pensive. She did not notice his presence until James gently took her hand. "What are you thinking?" James asked softly. Deep was a little startled and then shook his head slightly. "No problem. It's just that today something surprised me a little." James sat down next to her, his eyes searching for something. Deep hesitated for a long time, then slowly said, "Today I met my ex-husband." That sentence was like a thunderbolt. James unconsciously squeezed her hand tighter than his ex-husband's. Why did he appear? Deep bowed his head with complicated eyes. "He said he wanted to see me to apologize and want to talk to you one last time." James took a deep breath to calm down. "I know, Deep had an unhappy marriage, but she never went into too much detail. What did he do to you in the past?" James asked in a low voice. Deep looked at James, her eyes filled with pain. "I married him at 22 years old. But that is a mistake. He doesn't love me, he just sees me as a toy. When I had a miscarriage, because of stress and pressure from marriage, he immediately asked for a divorce. I have left that past behind and do not want to mention it again." James felt a surge of anger rise in him. "I hate people who hurt Deep. What does he want now?" He said he wants to get back with me. "James can't let this go. I knew I needed to meet that man." The next day, James meets Deep's ex-husband at a coffee shop. Here man has a worldly appearance, but the eyes are full of scheming. "You are James." He smirked at James. "Yes, I am Deep's man now. What did you come to see her for?" He sneered and leaned his hands on the table. "I came to take back what is mine." Groaning with a dangerous voice. "Are you talking about Deep? She is not your possession." He took a sip of coffee and said in a casual voice, "Do you know how much she loved me before? No, I believe deep down she still has feelings for me." James slammed his hand on the table in a cold voice. "I think just turn back. Will she forgive him? You hurt her too much." He shrugged, then let her decide. "Don't be confident that she only loves you." That night I went home with a heavy heart. He is not worried that Deep will leave him, but he didn't want her to suffer any trouble. From the past, when he entered the house, Deep was already waiting. She looked at him with worried eyes. "Have you met him?" James nodded. "He wants me back." Deep sighed and walked over to hug James. "James, I used to love him, but that's in the past. The person I love and wanted to be with for the rest of my life is you." James hugged her tightly, feeling her warmth. "I believe you." His voice is deep. "I will meet him one last time to make things clear." The next day at a small cafe, Deep meets her ex-husband. He looked at her with gentle eyes that she once longed for, but now she just feels cold. "I still love you, Purple Leaf, we can start over." Deep shook his head with a determined look. "No way. You are the past, and my present and future are James. I learned to love myself more, And James was the one who helped me do that. He was silent and then smiled bitterly. So I really lost you. Deep nodded goodbye to him. She left without looking back. That evening, James and Deep standing on the terrace. Look at the glittering lights of the city. Finally, it's over. Deep said, leaning her head on James' shoulder. Well, James squeezed her hand. Thank you for choosing me. Deep smiled. You are not my choice. You are my destiny. James kissed her forehead. Happy. Because they know that their love has stood the test and will never be separated again. After being flatly rejected by Deep, her ex-husband was not satisfied. He is not a man to give up easily, especially when seeing Deep now happy with James, a powerful and wealthy CEO. In the heart of the ex-husband arose a bitter jealousy. He didn't just want to get back to Deep, but also want to destroy everything she has, including her love for James. Know that James is a successful businessman. Ex-husband decided to attack the big weak point, his most famous and career. He used his media connections, spread false rumors that James once bribed officials to win big contracts. James cheated behind the back of the Leaf. James's company is involved. 2 illegal transactions. Media quickly caught on this news, causing James's company stock to plummet. The board of directors began to put pressure on James' request. Clarify the above allegations. But what's more frightening is that Deep was also dragged into this. Malicious articles called her back gold digger, assuming she came to him just for money and status. Deep is extremely heartbroken when seeing my image distorted. So scary. Ex-husband did not stop there. He hired a woman, a famous model, to pretend to have an affair with James. One evening when James came home from work, ex-husband for staging, the model appeared in front of the hotel, rushed to hug Dream as he got out of the car. The reporters were waiting to take a series of photos. James and Keir woman image appear in the newspaper with title CEO, James adultery betrayal, fiancé to Deep. When reading this news, Deep could not help but be shaken. She doesn't believe James is that kind of person, but the images before her eyes made her heart ache. Her ex-husband took this opportunity to appear by her side repeatedly, pretend to care and comfort. Deep, do you see? James doesn't really love me. He is just like you used to be. Just see me as a pastime. Deep began to fall into a state of confusion. Deep hurt. Despite being involved in a scandal, James was not shaken. I know someone is pulling the strings. With the help of a close assistant, James investigated and discovered. Model receives large sum of money from ex-husband to stage the incident. Articles defaming him. Also comes from a media group. Have contact with ex-husband. No more waiting. James immediately held a public press conference. He showed evidence. Financial transactions between ex-husband and Keir model. Provide audio recording. Conversation between ex-husband and reporter, where he admitted to hiring someone to smear James. pledged to sue those who spread false information. The media immediately turned their backs on her ex-husband. He became a liar condemned by society. His company is facing bankruptcy. However, there is a more important issue to Deep's belief. After the events, Deep still has not completely calmed down. He came to her, looked straight into her eyes, and spoke in a deep voice. "Do you trust me, Deep?" She was silent for a long time and then said softly, "I had a moment of hesitation. But deep down, I always believed you were not that kind of person." James took her hand with sincere eyes. "I'm sorry for getting you involved in all this. But I promise you, I will not let anyone separate us." Deep burst into tears, leaning her head on his chest. "We have been through so much. I don't want to lose you." Game hugged her tight, "Me too." After the plot was exposed, ex-husband officially ruined his reputation. He was fired by the company. Partners turned their backs. He was even sued for defamation. One night, ex-husband came to James drunk. "Why can you have everything? And I lost everything." James looked at him coldly. "Because I appreciate what I have and you don't." He smiled bitterly and turned away, disappeared from James and Deep's lives forever. After all the storms, James and Deep understand each other better. They decided to get married, mark a new beginning. No trace of the past. In the aisle, when James held Ziyi's hand and looked into her eyes, he said softly, "From now on I will always be with you. Protect me and never let anyone hurt me again." Deep smiled happily, "I believe you." And they lived together forever. Do you believe that Deep will leave James? Leave a comment